At some point, I think I would like to have a day where maybe I don't get a weird change in my mind happen. And the reason I'm saying I almost hit stop on recording because I was like, no, don't go down this way. But I'm going to go down this route. I got some weird news today. Well, it's still fresh in my head because first of all, I had been trying to get caught up with my emails and my messages and been behind on a lot of things, and spent the better part of today catching up with people and trying to get some other stuff finished up. And sometimes time just gets ahead of you. It really does. Now, I stay up rather late in the evening and work on stuff and get a lot of things, where I end up spending a lot more time on certain projects than I had planned. And that's just par for the course, right? Especially if I'm working for myself. That's one of the things that I end up going through. And I'm okay with that. But it's still unfortunate whenever I had certain things planned out that I wanted to get done. On one weird note, and I guess I'm just going to say it. I didn't make it into Naka-Kon. It's weird to say that out loud. I've already said it once and I was like, oh shit. But I didn't. So for those of you that were looking to see if I was going to be at Naka-Kon this year, this is the only place I'm going to announce it. I'm not saying anything anywhere else. I'm not going to post anything about it. I'm happy for those that did make it in there. In fact, here's the email. I mean, it was bound to happen. So basically, this is the form letter. We want to thank you so much for taking the time to submit your application for Naka-Kon 2023. It has not been an easy decision to everyone. We regret to inform you that you have not been selected to be part of the 2023 exhibit hall. This year we had over 400 applicants. Good for them. I'm glad that they are getting that kind of growth and that those many people are applying for it. It's amazing. I opted to not want to be on the wait list, and I will put in for a form for next year, but I think maybe this is a good thing. Maybe things are aligning the way they're supposed to be. So as you can see, 400 plus applicants, according to them. And I can believe it. There are parts of me that wish the show would get bigger. I don't claim to know all the inner workings of the show. I don't claim to know very much about it. I know that there are difficulties in running any show, regardless of the size and whatever may happen. I really had always wished that they were going to get bigger. The largest attendance cap that I think they'd ever done was around 7,000 attendees. And it kept the show very much controlled. It was easier to understand. It wouldn't have involved that many people suddenly becoming salaried. It would have kept them, I believe, as a nonprofit as they exist currently. Don't quote me on that. I could have some information wrong. The thing that happened, though, was that, and I know that they probably wouldn't say this, I would deem a competitor here in town decided to go ahead and do Planet Anime. Now, I don't do the Planet shows because they're prohibitively expensive. And this is going to be the inaugural year of Planet Anime. I stopped doing Planet Comic-Con after every single year that I went to it. I just wasn't making any money. I would make some years, but again, it was always at the factor that I had to have fan art. I was rarely able to sell things that were unique. And for the most part, I have managed to do Naka-Kon with the exception of 1 year, where Planet and Naka-Kon happened on the same weekend. And stupidly enough, I thought, out of the two, Planet is much larger. They get over 50,000 people. They've never officially released numbers, and I can understand that. But they get a lot of people, and they take over Bartle Hall. And in my head, I thought, well, surely the numbers there will allow me to do. I don't know why, considering I'd never done good at the show. I just never had. Well, that's the only year that I hadn't done Naka-Kon. I have continually done, and I'm not joking, I don't think it'd be a lie to say that it was almost, has it been 12 years? I think I've almost consecutively, with the exception of one, so it'd be 11 years if this is true. I think I've done Naka-Kon's vendor room, their artist alley, per se, for over a decade. I'm almost certain of it. I save all of my badges, right? And I have, of course, business records and things like that that go all the way back to it. And more than likely video and all this other stuff. So I'm going to do a deep dive after I get done with this and see, holy shit, how long have I done the show? I just know it's been a long time because they've moved that show sometimes during different times of the year and stuff like that. Oh, I take it back. There was one other year that I didn't do it, and that's when it got shut down for COVID. And I think the year following, they had a very small turnout as far as like, because of the control and everything else like that they had on there. And they had the very first virtual con aspect of it, which is rather cool. I remember when I first saw it, you could walk in, and it was very Minecrafty, how you could walk around things. And for those experiences, I think it had a lot left to be desired, but that wasn't their fault. It was still an amazing thing to have. And so I thought that was very cool. So, yeah, I'm in shock. I think I always take it for granted that I was going to make it back in that show because I knew people there and everything. And then that made me feel kind of weird. Like, am I just getting in because I'm sort of an old staple or what the case was? Nonetheless, I'm going to admit something right now. It's the truth. I thought about this the other day. Am I ready to go back to any show? And I'm not backpedaling because of this. This is a real thing. I wrote about it in my journals, and I kept thinking about it. And I think a part of me too was struggling because I really want Volume 1 of World of Art to be good. But right now, at this point in time where I've reached a point where, and you guys know this, if you've been following any of my social media over especially this last year, the absolute mindfuck that last year was to me, just fucking flat out devastating, right? Just didn't make money, didn't find any pathway, didn't fucking make it work. There was 2 or 3 shows maybe that I did okay at, and I kept thinking, I have worn my fucking welcome out. Like, there is just nothing here that is going to redeem this. So when I went into this year, there have already been a few shows. Now, there are shows that, I could certainly pay for and go and do some smaller retro and toy ones and things. And I thought about that. In fact, this Saturday, I'm going to be going to one. If everything holds well and the weather's not shitty or anything else like that, I'll be going to a retro show this weekend, which I'm looking forward to. And then I think one in March. And granted, I didn't make it in a Naka-Kon, but I'm still planning on going to the show if everything works out okay. So I still want to support them. I still love that show. It's always going to be my favorite show. But maybe this is a blessing in disguise. It really feels like it is. This last journal entry that I did, I talked about very much how I didn't want to rush anything and how I was feeling like maybe I needed to take a break. Well, slap me right in the face because this is that moment. And if that's the case, maybe I'm just holding back on everything. Maybe I'm not going to go back and do the Japanese festival either. It depends. I know that's later in the year, so maybe that'll be a completely different feeling. That is the one that was a runaway hit for me. And I think I can have my book done by then, but I know that I want this to be right. I want the things I'm putting out to be correct. And I know that burnout is very real for me. And it has been something I have been arguing myself with. I refuse to believe it. I refuse to run with it. And the amount of therapy books I've got to, really work through, the things I'm trying to do, because I'll be honest, one of the things I don't want to do is I am fairly certain by, what I've been able to be told that, this ADHD shit isn't going to get any easier. It's not going to get any better. And I don't want to be on medication. I just don't. I have an addictive personality, and real fucking talk, I don't want to be on anything that's going to fuck me up. I mean, it'd be, and I can't say that. I mean, I come from a family that, has a lot of alcoholics in it. My dad's a horrible, horrible fucking alcoholic. At least he admits it, And he's a functioning alcoholic, for whatever the fuck that means, But the point is that with that, I was like, maybe this year I'm just taking a fucking break. Maybe 2024 is when I come back, and this will give me a good 11 months to really get my brain together, work on this studio, get my other stuff in order. It does feel like a breath of fresh air. And am I upset? Yeah, of course I am. It's a blow to the ego, you know? But it's also one where I was so scared that if I went, that I was going to be substandard. And I sure as hell didn't want to be that. I don't think I could have handled that. I would have gone and I would have been like, great, I wasn't ready. And that's the worst part, right? You go and do a show, and maybe you're doing the show and you're feeling pretty good about things, but you go and do the show and it doesn't come out exactly like how you thought, right? Like everything's just a miss. And I thought, no, maybe this really is a time that I just kind of, I cull back from everything and I just go, hey, I'm going to hide out for a while. I'm just going to lay low. I'm not going to do shit. Part of it too has been really difficult for me. I had reached out to a friend of mine, and he said something really funny that I was like, that's kind of true. I think we both have. He mentioned that he had been a satellite friend, and I'm like, well, you might as well call us NASA because we've both been that. I get it. Like for a lot of people in my life, I'd been that way. Like, maybe messaging here and there or talking on occasion or seeing people, but I'd been pulling back so much that I thought, I don't want to be like this at a show. What if I go to a show, right? What if I go to a show and I'm just not capable of functioning like I can? Now, I know it's going to be different. Like this show that I'm going to on Saturday, if everything goes right, it's a little retro show. Probably going to be about 300-400 people there, maybe that sort of thing. I just want to go, have some fun, maybe do a review of the show, or maybe fucking not, right? I'm still not even caught up with the reviews from last year. And no shit, knowing that there was a bunch of stuff coming up, for Naka-Kon and everything else that freaked me out. There's as you saw in the email, there's absolutely the opportunity for me to be put on the wait list. I don't think I can do it. I just, everything right now, like, when you get, okay, like, I don't know if you guys have ever been through this, like a similar circumstance like this, but imagine just going through something where you're like kind of trying to hype yourself up for something that you used to previously be hyped for. And just something is like, this just doesn't feel like this is the year for me. Like, this isn't right. Like, something's off, right? And you're just kind of going along with emotions because you're like, no, I'll be fine. It'll be okay, and no, the fuck it's not. But not till somebody else makes that big ass decision for you do you suddenly realize, like, oh God, okay, no, that was better. I'm gonna tell you guys a story. This is real shit. I mean, everything I'm telling you guys is real. I used to work for a sign company called Vital Sign. It's been enough years, that's not a big deal. Like 16 years ago or so. It's closer to 18 years ago. It used to be in God, it used to be in Blue Springs. And I remember I was struggling like crazy. It was a graphic design job, and I hated it. Because, if you've ever worked doing vinyl signs, you're like weeding shit. Weeding is basically where the plotter will cut out all the vinyl, and then you go in with tweezers or whatever the fuck you have, and you're weeding out the negative space and just leaving behind the letters and the designs and stuff that are actually going to be adhered on the vehicle, the window, whatever the fuck you're making, mainly signs. And I tried so hard to fit in there. It was me and 3 other ladies. One was, first of all, I want to say this. 2 of them were extremely nice, but I just didn't have a lot in common with them. The owner was doing it more. I'll never forget this. I tried to talk to her one time about design, who her favorite artists were, all this other stuff, right? Nothing. She wasn't really a designer. She just worked in a particular program that mirrored Illustrator and did some stuff. And it was just an easy enough job to get into, was sign design. And I was like, wow, okay, so that's an eye opener. I didn't anticipate that. And then the other woman that worked there just kind of knew how to do the sign stuff. She wasn't a designer. She was an extremely good installer, and she would weed stuff and do things like that. Like, the stuff you do to get the signs ready or the lettering ready for it. And then the other lady was a full-on, she was about my age, and coincidentally went to school with me at UCM. Now I can say this now because, you know, enough time's gone by, and the chances of them seeing this video are probably next to impossible. Specifically, since I'm not going to name vital signs in this, but so I'm going to go on and say this. Guess which one I didn't get along with? So it would be the one that was in my school. And when we first talked, I remember my boss was really excited because we were both going to UCM. So she was like, oh, you guys will be in common. Do you guys know each other and everything? I was like, no. We totally hung out with different groups, totally hung out with different people. There was no fucking connection at all. And I was in illustration. Yeah, I mean, like I had a couple of different degrees I was working toward. Commercial illustration was the main one that I was really going toward. I had just come off from trying to be, simultaneously trying to be history and theater. I had the stupidest fucking career in college ever. So we end up there, you know, working, and the other lady that was hired there would mainly stay behind and do that stuff. She didn't like climbing on ladders, didn't like doing that stuff. And she was clearly friends with the boss, and they were on level field and everything else like that. I never felt like I was capable of doing anything or bringing anything to it because I struggled to understand the program, since it was like a weird version of Illustrator, but it also, because it worked in vectors and points and all this other stuff, but it didn't really do the stuff it needed to do to a satisfactory point, because it was specifically for making vinyl cut lettering. So there was a limitation to what it did. And I will never forget how weird interactions between me and the newest member of her team were. I would try and talk about CMSU at the time. I would try and, you know, talk about different things, but she was a graphic designer. She didn't really understand, but she would talk about how, oh, I did art, I did all these other things. For any of you that know me, you know this is true. I don't fucking say shit about what I do. I will go to meetings. I have been to public meetings, private meetings, one-on-one. I am the last motherfucker to say what I am, unless it's one of those things like, let's merry-go-round this bitch and just go around and talk about what the fuck we all do. I don't say shit, but if you ask me, I'm going to lay my whole fucking curriculum vitae out, man. Here, like, fucking eat my resume. Like, seriously, because then it's like, you asked for it, I'm going to say it. No, I'm not an asshole about it, but I definitely am proud of what I've done, right? And so I'll talk about what I know, my knowledge base. It's like, hey, if you ask, I'm certainly going to sit there and I'm going to strut my feathers and I'm going to show off a little bit. I think a lot of people do that. Well, I never said anything for a long time. And then one day, there was a circumstance where somebody wanted a reference for an illustrator, and I always carried my portfolio around with me at that time. I don't remember why, but I did. I had like a little micro portfolio back when that was the thing, you know, when you didn't have your phone to swipe through, or an Insta. And they were trying to find an illustrator, and I said, well, actually, that's my major. Now, the weird part about it was that as a commercial illustrator major is, you know, what it was, I also knew that shit was changing in the world really quickly. So there was a building that was on the opposite side of the campus. So if you've gone to CMSU or UCM, you know what I'm talking about. There's the Arts Center, and then you have to go back a ways. Now there's another big-ass multi-purpose building there, but it used to be some cheesy-ass 1970s era looking like tennis courts and a little walkway with a parking lot. And you'd go over to another building called Grinstead. Grinstead was sort of the graphics and technology building, is what they called it. So they had a class named that was called, it was desktop publishing. Literally the class, desktop publishing. They had another one that was like about there was just a bunch of different things like that. But the whole point was, I said, well, I take some graphic design courses over there, but I'm a commercial illustrator. So I brought my portfolio in. That day moving forward fucked everything up. That younger lady didn't want to fucking talk to me. It was a weird circumstance. I don't know if it was jealousy. I don't know if it was anger. I don't know what the fuck it was. It was not fun. So after all that happened, I remembered that, you know, like I was saying, it was just harder and harder to work there. So one of the things I struggled with was just finding my place working there. And I will never forget, there was an opportunity that came up, and I I started staying quiet. If I feel like I'm out of place or I don't belong somewhere or I'm not welcome, I get super quiet. I'll finish the job, I'll do what I'm supposed to do, and that's it. And I'm notorious for also not talking a lot about myself. Just in general, I just don't. If I'm there to do a job, I can be nice enough, I can make jokes, but I remember somebody said, it's interesting you place a veneer out there, a facade. And I said, yeah, that's from stage, and that's also when I was aspiring to be a stand-up comedian. You put this front out there, and then that's what people will enjoy and they fall for, right? This is different. This is one of the first times in my life where I'm being fairly open about a lot of things, and what you're seeing is abso-fucking-lutely what you would get if you saw me on the street. So I remember, we were sent sometimes to go install, different things and stuff. But one day, I had always been looking for some reason to be able to show that, hey, well, I know a few other things, but I was always reluctant. And there was one day when there was this big job that came in for one of the high schools. And they had all of these, I forget, I want to say it's chloroplast, but that sounds like something botanical. But it's these, it's sort of like the same ridges that are in a cardboard sheet, but they're made out of plastic. Super non-eco-friendly. And we normally would weed all of them and then apply them on there, but they wanted a faster way to do it because there was like 150 or 160 of these signs. I think it was for a football game or some event, something that the school needed it for. So one thing led to another, and I was nearby listening, and I said, well, we're a sign shop. The only thing we don't do here is we don't do screen printing. Maybe you could do screen printing. And the lady I didn't get along with was like, well, who's going to do that? And I was like, well, I used to do that a long time ago. I've taken some screen printing stuff, and I did screen printing back when I was in Boy Scouts. Got the merit badge and everything. And I don't think anyone believed me. This was going, here's some mental fucking therapy for you guys. That's when it first started hitting me that I was like, everyone must think I'm a fucking idiot or something, because they were like, this hairy jackass can't possibly know how to screen print. I was like, out of all the motherfuckers in here, I would be the one that would, tell me a hippie you don't know that doesn't fucking, I'm screen printing my own shit, man. Tell me that's not a real fucking thing. So I said, yeah, it's not that hard. The paint is fairly inexpensive and it's single color, right? So we've only got to worry about one screen, and the screens aren't that hard to build. It's just getting the image burned on there and everything. Well, my boss was like, I happen to know somebody that does screen printing, and he's always wanted me to take some of his older equipment. It's hand pulling stuff. Do you know what that is? I was like, yeah. I was like, there's a longer piece that you pull, and I couldn't remember the name back then. Back then I remembered. Now I'm like, I haven't done that in a long time. But essentially the squeegee action you would do to get the ink down. And this is absolutely fucking true. That happened on a Friday, and I didn't work that Saturday or that Sunday. Came in Monday, and I walked to the back, and my boss is back there, and like, here you go. And it was weird because I remember the other two ladies were in the front, and they both came back to watch me do the screen printing. So I laid it out, and I was trying to remember, and I get nervous when people watch me, do anything like that. But it came back like that. And I started pulling and screen printing, and I was like, there you go. And when I did the first one, as God is my witness, this is what happened. Out of the two employees, the older lady was like, and I couldn't really read it. It was more like she was rather shocked that I knew it. This look of complete and total irritation spread across the younger one's face as she stormed off and went back inside. Neither one of them talked to me for the rest of the day, which was fine. I was working by myself back in the single garage that we had that we would pull vans and cars into to apply vinyl work onto. So I just spent the rest of the day back out there just doing I got through all 140, 45 of them, whatever it was, and staggered them. I was the happiest I'd been in a long time, and it took the better part of my day because I had to clean the screens and do all this other stuff. And I had a couple of mishaps, but for the most part, everything went rather smooth. I got done, and she thanked me, and it was great. And my spirits were lifted. I felt good. I felt like, okay, maybe this job isn't going to be that bad. It's not the greatest job. This is not going to be my life's calling. So I'll just take it for what it's worth. Famous last fucking words. The next week was shit. I fucked up jobs left and right. And just the younger woman that I went to school with, we just kept butting heads. There was no communication. It felt really weird. And my anxiety was raising so much. What I'm about to tell you guys is 100% fucking embarrassing, but it is, I swear to God, 100% true. So it was that Friday, and everyone was just in a foul mood, like through the week. And there was just a weird thing, off. And I tried staying as quiet as possible. And in the back of my head, I'm like, this isn't working. This just isn't going to work. I don't know what I'm going to do, man. Jesus. And I'm not a quitter. I give up on shit sometimes, but I always go, you bastard. And I'll go back and I'll finish it. I'll see it through. I'll fucking hate myself and I'll be pissy sometimes, but I'll see shit through. I knew what was going on because I was working on something, and then the older of my two coworkers got the younger one and said, oh, hey, there's something I got to talk to you here in the back about real quick. And she's like, what do you got to talk to me about? Like, she was completely oblivious. I'm like, and literally that would have been the face on the inside. I had like a poker face on, but my face was like, I'm about to get fired. Because I know that thing. No one's a really fucking Oscar-winning approach at any of this shit. The acting is fucking horrible. They went to the back room, back where I'd been doing the screen printing and stuff. And then, so there was a garage in the back where the screen printing stuff was set up in the vinyl that we would apply to cars and stuff. And then there was one big long room with like a weeding table. And then the plotters were over to the side, small computer station, then an office. And then the front foyer area, there's more like a waiting area. Like when you go in to get your oil changed, there's like 3 shitty seats and like a coffee maker. And the lady that I worked for, Anita, she came to me, and I swear to God, this is true. If you find her, to this day, she would tell you this is exactly what happened. If she even cares to remember this. She comes up and she's like kind of red-faced, and she's like, so Maria, I just want to talk to you. You're a really nice person. I was like, here it comes. And she's like, I just don't think you're a good fit for this. And I'm really sorry, but I think I'm just going to have to let you go. She didn't even finish the word go. I don't know what the fuck happened. Every last ounce of pressure, anger, student debt, passive aggressiveness from my coworker, bad grades, like you name it, fucking everything came out all on her, but not in a bad way. I just started crying, like ugly cry, like almost snot running out of my nose, like shuddering crying. And I was like, like I had just won a fucking award, and I'm like, you really like me, you really, really like me. And I was like, just, oh my God, I can even remember now. I had like tears streaming, and like I was red, and I was like choking, and I'm like, you don't understand. I hate this job. I'm not a quitter. I think you're a fine boss. You're a perfectly fine person. I hate this job. And I went way the fuck down the deep end. And I was like, and that one lady, the older lady, she had this habit of always talking about her husband. Now, don't get me wrong. That's fine. If they're in a relationship, that's great. I'm going to be pretty rude right now what I say, but I don't fucking care because I already fucked it up back then. She was always going on about how muscular he was, how godlike you would have thought this man looked like he could have been, one of the main characters in the movie 300. Just this adness of a man that when he walked in, I would get pregnant. Like it was, oh shit, dick in the face. Just some shit like that was going to happen. And I'm like, the first time I met him, I'm like, is this fucking Barney Fife? Who the fuck is this? And And I understand, right? Love is blind. Love is weird. You see, it's what it is. But I will never forget consistently hearing this. And I just got tired of it. After I'd met him, I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And it's a very rude and man thing for me. But I was like, but I never said shit the entire time. But as I'm crying, I'm just like, and she won't stop talking about her husband. And I'm sorry, I don't see it. He doesn't look like Brad Pitt. He really doesn't. He just doesn't. And then I went off about the younger lady. I was like, and I hate the fact that we go to the same school. I actually thought about stopping going to school. I thought about switching my major again. I can't work with her. Like, she's been passive aggressive. And then I talked about one job that we did where, yes, the cutting had been wrong. It was the wrong vinyl, but I kept saying, we need to go in and we need to tell them that we cut the wrong vinyl color for the letters. And she was like, it'll be fine. As long as the work is done, they're not going to say anything. Well, when we came back, by that time the customer had called. She was the first one back in the shop. And she said, yeah, Mario cut that. And he said that was the right color. So I got thrown under the bus. And so that whole fucking memory came right back the fuck to me. And I was like, and I can't stand this. And the thing is, maybe she'll be decent as a graphic designer. I have no fucking idea. I don't care. I don't want to be called a liar over vinyl. I never thought this shit would make me this mad. And I was pointing at vinyl. And it was not my proudest fucking moment. It just wasn't. It's fucking embarrassing. But I'm just being fucking honest right now. I was like, and I'm crying. I'm like picking up my shit, my man bag, my fucking hoodie, everything. I'm just like, and another motherfucking thing. It's just I think I started cussing at that point. She's red faced this whole time, and I'm like, but thank you for crying, not crying. Thank you for firing me. You have no idea. I don't like to quit. I'm just so glad you took pity on me and you just fired me because God, I hate this job. And then like that, like a fucking psychopath, I'm just like, no, seriously, have a good day. And I walked out. Walked to my truck, got in, and I'm like, whew. I remember distinctly that I drove to Toys R Us right after that, right? I had no job. I didn't give a fuck. Walked around for a while. I completely missed some shit because I think she was trying to tell me she was going to give me my paycheck at the end of the week, that my hours would be fine. I didn't even clock out. We had software we had to log in. I didn't give a fuck. And yeah, it's fucking crazy. It's one of the weirdest fucking moments of my life. And, but there is a weird end to this story. So I was still doing security at that time. And fast forward some, and we get to this point where she came in one night with her friends. It was a wedding party. Not hers, somebody else's. And I was like, oh, hey. And she's like, Mario. And she'd already been a little tipsy, a little drunk, a little drunk. And she's like, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? And then she tells all of her friends, this is Mario. He used to work for me. And there's like this wave of recognition. It's like, oh, this motherfucker. And they're like, oh, hi. And so it's this weird thing. I remember standing next to my buddy Phil, and he was like, how do you know these people? But again, local yokels, they get to know the security guards over at the front door at this Patio Quigley's bar. And they go in, and I tell them the whole story and everything. He had a goddamn laugh out of it. I miss that dude all the time. He's a really good guy. He's still around somewhere. He was actually a former Mr. Universe. I hired a former Mr. Universe. I didn't hire him. He was part of my crew. My boss hired him, and then I hired a buddy of his who was also another former Mr. Universe, if I got that right. Big bodybuilder types. Quite frankly, Phil Williams was one of the most formidable former bodybuilders and just formidable men I've ever met in my life. Just someday there's a book coming out that I'm writing about all the years that I spent doing security. And although I've changed names on them, he is definitely a prominent factor in there. So that's something I'm really looking forward to getting out there at some point in time. Nonetheless, when they came in, so getting back to my boss Anita coming in, she was very cool about it. And I said, hey, I want to apologize. She was like, you know what? No, that's okay. I actually ended up selling the store shortly after. And I remember looking at her going, really? And she's like, yeah, it just wasn't for me. And that was it. And I was like, okay, cool. And she's like, well, I better go catch up with my party. We're just here to drink and celebrate, my friend of mine getting married. And I was like, have fun. If you need anything, we're up here. I don't think anyone's going to bug you. It's pretty early. She's like, yeah, we're older, so I just want to get out and just have some fun before, the crazies get out and it gets crazy out here. So nice to see you, though. I'm like, yeah, same, Anita. I'll see you around. Never saw her again. And I think about that, right? How sometimes things in life will set you up for something different. And so maybe that's the case with this. Maybe that's what's happening. I'm not going to do Naka-Kon because they didn't let me in, and that's okay. Sometimes it's what we got to go through in life. Oh, man, that felt like a huge, whoo. If I ever get around to talking about my security days, I could go on for literally days and days. I've forgotten more shit than I can remember, but the good thing was that was when I was hardcore into live journal and all this other stuff, and every single time on weekends I'll be like, this motherfucker, he did it. So there's a lot of things that I can extrapolate from there, and I've kept a lot of those files. A lot of them are still online, but I have the pre-production version of a bunch of those stories lined up in a book that I was going to put out. So that'll be some fun someday. But yeah, take the good with the bad, and although this wasn't great, I wouldn't call it bad. So who knows what the rest of the year is going to be like. But at the very least, I know I'll be attending Naka-Kon unless something else comes up where I just don't have the finances to be able to pull that off. I'll go to the show and enjoy it for what it's worth. And I'm looking forward to that because I've never been able to actually be part of the show as just somebody attending, which should be a fucking blast. Thanks for watching, guys. It means the world to me. And I'll catch you in my next journal entry. I was struggling to get this story done. I was struggling to get other work done. I've been having a whole bunch of other issues. And last episode that I did, last journal entry, I'm making it sound like it's a fucking reality show. It's not a reality show. This last episode, fuck! I'm fucking delirious.